You can spot a bad Wrangler before it even breaks. Certain years carry problems so severe, owners say they're afraid to drive them. No warning, no pattern, just failure. And one of them changed the reputation of Jeep forever. Here are 7 Wrangler years you should never buy. Number 7. The 2014 Wrangler, the plastic bomb under the hood. Every buyer in 2014 believed Jeep had finally sorted out the Pentastar engine nightmares from 2012. The forums were celebrating. The complaints had dropped. And then a completely different part started failing in a way nobody saw coming. Chrysler built the oil cooler housing out of plastic, and that plastic cracked under normal driving temperatures without any warning on the dashboard. When it split open, hot engine oil drips directly onto the exhaust manifold, sitting inches below it. One woman on a Jeep forum wrote that she was dropping her kids off at daycare when smoke started pouring from under the hood. Her mechanic told her the oil had been landing on the exhaust and could have sparked a fire at any moment, and she had been driving like that for weeks without knowing. But the oil cooler was only half the disaster, because the 3.6-liter Pentastar in this year still carried the rocker arm and valve train issues from earlier production runs. Ticking from the left cylinder head, misfires on cylinder number 2, and rough idling that appeared and vanished like a ghost. NHTSA logged over 500 complaints and 7 recalls for the 2014, and the oil cooler fix alone cost $400 to $800, depending on whether the heat had already damaged nearby wiring. If a 2014 shows up on a used lot at a suspiciously sweet price, the oil cooler is your answer. And a cracked plastic part is frustrating, but the next Wrangler on this list had an electrical brain that could turn your truck into a possessed nightmare at 3 in the morning. Number 6. The 2010 Wrangler, the poltergeist on wheels. The 2010 came with the same tired 3.8-liter V6 that Chrysler yanked from the Town & Country minivan, but the engine was not even the scariest part of owning this truck. The real villain hiding inside was the Totally Integrated Power Module, TIPM, and this single component controlled everything electrical in the Wrangler. Fuel pump, headlights, horn, wipers, door locks, dashboard instruments, all of it ran through this one box. And when it failed, your life became a horror movie. Owners reported horns blasting at 3 a.m. with nobody inside the vehicle, headlights flashing on and off in the driveway like a strobe, wipers turning on during a perfectly clear day and refusing to stop no matter what button you pressed. One woman on a Jeep forum said her fuel pump died on the highway with her daughter beside her, and the truck just rolled to a dead stop in the center lane while cars swerved around them at 70 miles per hour. And in the most extreme cases, the TIPM shorted out so badly that smoke poured from under the hood and wiring melted inside the engine bay. An NHTSA complaint describes a 2010 Wrangler parked in a driveway where the owner put it in reverse, and electrical smoke immediately billowed from the engine compartment, and the transmission wiring harness had melted. Consumer Reports ranked the 2010 dead last in reliability that year. NHTSA shows 673 complaints and 11 recalls, and replacing the TIPM cost between $800 and $1,200. The average repair mileage was just 77,000 miles, which means these trucks were dying electrically while they still had years of life left in them. But a possessed electrical system is terrifying. What the next Wrangler did was even worse, because it quietly disabled the one thing designed to save your life in a crash without ever telling you. Number 5. The 2011 Wrangler, the silent airbag killer. The 2011 was the last year of the old 3.8-liter engine, and everybody was counting down to the Pentastar upgrade in 2012. But the buyers stuck with this model got something more dangerous than a weak motor. A component called the clock spring, hidden inside the steering column, kept snapping over and over. When it broke, the driver's side airbag went completely dead. No warning chime, no error message on startup. Just the airbag light sitting there on the dashboard, telling you that if a truck T-boned you at an intersection, nothing would fire to protect your face. Families were taking summer road trips. Women were commuting to work. Couples were driving across the country. And the whole time, the one system designed to save them in a head-on collision was silently disabled behind the steering wheel. NHTSA received 468 complaints and issued 11 recalls for this model year, and the clock spring defect sat right at the top. But the truly maddening part was that even after the recall repair, the replacement clock springs broke again within months. One owner said she brought her Wrangler in 3 separate times under warranty for the exact same fix, and it still kept failing. And on top of everything, the 2011 fell under the massive Takata airbag recall, covering Wranglers from 2007 through 2017, where defective inflators could rupture during a crash and launch metal shrapnel into the cabin. So you had a choice between an airbag that would not deploy at all, or one that could send fragments at your face when it did. Read that again. And disabled airbags are terrifying on their own, but the next Wrangler year introduced a brand new engine, hiding a factory defect so deep that Chrysler literally ran out of replacement parts trying to fix it. If you're here, you're clearly a Jeep lover. That's exactly why I put together the 500,000-mile Jeep Blueprint. After 15 years working on Jeeps, I put all my best tips into a simple guide to help them last longer. Link is in the description below. Number 4. The 2012 Wrangler, the Pentastar Lottery. This was supposed to be the year that fixed everything. Jeep finally killed the wheezy minivan engine and dropped in the 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 with 285 horsepower and a smooth new 5-speed automatic. Every forum on the internet threw a party. But what actually showed up in customer driveways was a ticking time bomb. The left cylinder head had a manufacturing defect that wore down the valve guides and valve seats way too fast, and it showed up as a ticking noise from the engine, followed by misfires on cylinder number 2. Chrysler's head of quality, Doug Betts, told Automotive News in August 2012 that roughly 0.5% of Pentastar engines carried the flaw. That sounds tiny until you run the numbers, because 0.5% meant approximately 7,500 defective engines already sitting in customer hands across the country. Women commuting to work would suddenly lose power on the highway while the check engine light started flashing. Some owners reported smoke filling the cabin from oil burning past worn valve guides, and the P0302 misfire code became so common that Jeep forum members started calling it the Pentastar Lottery. You got a good head or a bad one, and there was zero way to know until it failed. Chrysler redesigned the head mid-2012, but dealers ran out of replacements almost instantly. Automotive News reported over 1,300 vehicles parked in dealership service bays at one point, all waiting for parts that did not exist yet, while Chrysler paid for every single rental car. NHTSA logged 9 recalls for this year, and the 2012 still ranks as the single worst Wrangler model year on every major complaint tracking site. If you are shopping for a 2012, ask about the left head part number RL141353AC. If nobody can confirm the swap happened, turn around and do not look back. But a bad engine can be rebuilt for a price. The next Wrangler had so many systems failing at the same time that mechanics genuinely did not know where to start. Number 3. The 2008 Wrangler, the Everything is Broken edition. The 2008 brought back every flaw from the 2007 launch year and stacked new ones on top. Same gutless 3.8-liter engine, same TIPM electrical chaos, same death wobble. But the 2008 earned its own spot because of how many systems collapsed at once. NHTSA has 1,515 complaints and 9 recalls on file, and the list of failures reads like a checklist of everything that can go wrong with a vehicle. Airbag clock springs failed and left drivers unprotected in documented collisions. The transmission fluid temperature sensor was straight up missing on many units from the factory, which meant the transmission could overheat and destroy itself without a single warning light ever appearing on the dashboard. That repair runs $3,000 to $5,000. The TIPM triggered phantom horn blasts at midnight, random headlight flashing, and in multiple NHTSA filings, actual underhood fires from shorted wiring. One 2008 owner wrote that he parked his Wrangler in the garage after a road trip, and hours later the engine burst into flames, destroying the Jeep and causing fire damage to his house. Another complaint describes a 2008 that accelerated on its own from a dead stop with nobody touching the gas pedal. That is not a mechanical problem. That is horror movie territory. If you want a channel that actually verifies every claim and saves you from buying someone else's nightmare, hit subscribe right now. We do this every single week. But the 2008 is old news at this point. The next Wrangler on this list stunned everyone because it was supposed to be the greatest Jeep ever built. Number 2. The 2018 Wrangler, the frame weld disaster. The all-new JL generation arrived in 2018 with the biggest hype any Wrangler had ever received. Redesigned platform, upgraded interior, turbocharged engine option, and Jeep promised this was the most refined Wrangler in history. But first-year production failed at the most basic level of vehicle construction, and I mean basic. The frame welds were bad. A citizen petition filed with NHTSA documented porous welds, excessive slag, and weld splash across the frame assembly of brand new trucks. NHTSA opened an investigation covering approximately 270,000 vehicles, and a separate recall pulled 18,000 units where the front track bar bracket had been welded in the wrong position. If that bracket separated from the frame at highway speed, steering response vanished instantly with zero warning. But the frame welds were not even the loudest complaint. The 2018 JL collected over 1,081 NHTSA complaints for steering issues alone, the highest steering complaint count in Wrangler history. Owners described the truck drifting across lanes, requiring constant white-knuckle correction just to drive straight, and exhibiting the death wobble at highway speeds after hitting small bumps. One woman wrote that she spent over $50,000 on a brand new Sahara and was genuinely terrified to drive it home from the dealership. Jeep replaced steering dampers under warranty, but owners burned through 3 and 4 damper replacements on the same truck, and the wobble kept returning. NHTSA logged 1,688 total complaints and 14 recalls for the 2018 model year. For a truck that cost more than a year of rent in a lot of cities, that is absolutely unacceptable. And now we arrive at number 1, the Wrangler that sits at the top of every worst of list. The one that gave birth to a problem so violent that owners named it after death. Number 1. The 2007 Wrangler, the original death wobble machine. The 2007 JK was a complete redesign from the ground up. First ever 4-door unlimited option, modern stability control, side airbags, and every automotive magazine praised it as the most capable Wrangler ever built. Families loved it. Women loved it. The Wrangler was finally a real daily driver. But under that beautiful new body was the 3.8-liter V6 that Chrysler pulled from the Town & Country minivan, producing just 202 horsepower while dragging 3,800 pounds through a 4-speed automatic that had no business being in an off-road vehicle. The engine burned oil from the factory, leaked from multiple gaskets, and had none of the bulletproof durability of the legendary 4.0-liter inline-6 it replaced. JP Magazine tore down 2 separate 2007 staff Wranglers where the 3.8 died before hitting 100,000 miles, one from spun main bearings and the other from piston rings that had crystallized and shattered inside the cylinders. But the engine was just the opening act. The death wobble on the 2007 has 104 dedicated complaints on car complaints, with hundreds more scattered across NHTSA categories. Owners describe hitting the smallest bump above 55 miles per hour and the entire front end shaking so violently that the steering wheel rips through their grip. The only escape is to brake hard and pray you can pull to the shoulder before the cars behind you catch up. One woman said it happened on a freeway overpass with her grandchildren in the back seat, and she genuinely believed they were going over the railing. Another owner described it happening so many times in 6 months that she put less than 2,000 miles on the truck because she was too afraid to drive it. NHTSA logged 1,395 complaints and 10 recalls for 2007. The fuel system sprayed gasoline out during every fill-up. The TIPM fried electronics randomly, the clock spring killed airbags, and Jeep never recalled the death wobble because they called it a natural characteristic of solid front axle vehicles, not a defect, a feature. The average repair attempt ran $880, and many owners spent well over $2,000 replacing every single steering and suspension component, only to have the shaking return weeks later. A $30 million class action settlement eventually covered 2018 through 2020 models, but the 2007 owners who lived through the absolute worst of it received nothing. 2007 did not just have problems, it invented a nightmare that chased every Wrangler generation for 20 straight years, and even now, brand new Wranglers are still generating death wobble complaints on the NHTSA website. If this saved you from a bad purchase, hit subscribe, and comment the Wrangler year you drive. I want to see what most of you are running. See you in the next one.